ARTalk one-on-one with Mr. Burgher.
I want to talk about this newfound love you have, apparently.
Newfound love?
Yes.
I don't have a newfound love.
You do. It's so
Don't
it is
be
so
ridiculous.
True. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
It's not a newfound love.
What is it?
It's just playing around with. I found on some AI system that you can type in words and say, "Make me a picture," and it makes a picture. And then on Facebook, you can do it too. You can play with it and make pictures. And
Interesting.
It's not.
So what were the things that you So you just discovered this last night. Last night you discovered this when we were creating a new segment for the podcast.
Right. Well, there's a new podcast coming out today, and so you wanted to have a little slick little ditty, as did I. And so I thought, well, maybe I could play with that, or for my art appreciation class that I teach, I'm creating kind of a booklet of information, and I thought, well, I could maybe create like a cover for it, and I thought, I could AI generate that with this new technology thing, and I've dabbled in it a little bit and found a couple of things.
A little bit. You come home tonight and you have like 30 different pictures.
Yeah, but all of those pictures were literally generated in 2 seconds. Like that was like 2 searches.
So let's just talk a little bit about what you generated.
Okay.
Let's use some of the keywords that you were inputting.
I put in like Mr. Burgher podcaster. Yes. I put in Mr. Burgher, art historian. I put in Mr. Burgher, wrestling champion of art history. These are normal searches.
Mr. Burgher, sexy.
Never did I put that.
I bet you did.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will next time. And
sexy
when you get lambasted, when you get blasted with AI things from me tomorrow, don't be surprised.
I was blasted tonight.
Don't be surprised.
Pictures of you like just buff, and then the sexy whatever historian. Like where are they coming up with these pictures?
You don't know what's under the shirt, lady. Behind this tie,
it just
light something on fire.
You crack me up.
But
I don't know if I was. I mean, the only thing I would generate would just be like logos for things and social media and things like that. I would never go in and say create myself in a different. That just seems so odd to me.
But there again, like what's the point behind it? The point behind it is like for my class. It's for my class.
You're going to show those pictures to your class?
The intention behind it was originally to create something for my class, or create something for the podcast, or I don't know. Just like if I got something cool, I didn't know what was going to happen.
That is weird if you're going to be showing those pictures to your class.
Keep it classy. Like there's some good ones.
I mean, some of them, but most of them are you trying to be all hulked out or sexy.
You say it's me trying to be. I'm not AI.
Okay, but the things
I'm not AI. I know I'm
things you're inferring when you're putting in those wrestling.
There is
you think they're going to have some little skinny, scrawny wrestler?
That's not an inference.
What is it then?
To infer.
AI isn't inferring?
Podcaster. You're right. By saying Mr. Burgher podcaster, I'm certainly...
No, you said wrestler. I'm talking wrestler.
Maybe the wrestler part, but not podcaster, not art historian. I'd think I'd be a nerdy little art historian guy.
You are a nerdy, big art historian guy. Why don't you put that in? Let's AI that and see what comes up. nerdy art historian, Mr. Burgher. You're going to generate that and you're going to post it on here.
Post it. Consider it posted.
Okay. Let's move on from your AI art
please.
generating to the actual podcast, Art One-on-One. I'm Nicole Jordan, the pod boss, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Wrestling Champion Art Historian of the World, Burgher.
Yeah, something like that.
I can't wait to see that one. I really can't.
Let's move on.
All right.
I didn't want to talk about. You brought this.
Oh,
up.
you are so full of it. You want to post those pictures on there, and you know it.
Okay.
All right. Getting into it. Art Vault. Let's start there.
The Art Vault, the segment where we talk a little bit of popular culture, talk a little bit of background on books, movies, whatever. So far, it's mostly been books.
Well, we've done it once.
We've done it once.
Today is a book, though.
Book day number 2.
Book number 2 is Painting as a Pastime by Winston Churchill.
And it's a great little read. It's not a very long text. Good luck finding it. But if you can come across Painting as a Pastime, I certainly encourage it. Years ago, Winston Churchill put together this text. He felt like, again, based on his narrative, his personal narrative that he puts in the book, he felt that art saved his life. He felt that art was, painting and drawing was something that gave a lot to him, and he wanted to give back to it by promoting it, condoning it, promoting it, condoning it. I don't know. And so he wrote the book.
And it did. He truly did, because he produced a lot of great artwork, right?
He did. He was a pretty accomplished oil painter, as a matter of fact. But he did, when he put those on display in England, he put them up under a pseudonym. He didn't use his name because he felt like if he used his own name, people would just like, oh yeah, isn't that cute? Winston Churchill, he's a painter. And so he used a fake name. Charles Munson, I think was the name he used. If I'm wrong, I'll blast it right here. But I'm pretty sure that Charles Munson was the name that he used as his fictitious name.
And what was the book about?
Painting as a Pastime.
Okay. Elaborate a little bit.
It was about, the whole first chapter is basically him talking about how painting gave to him. He wants to give back. He talks a little bit about how he was experimenting with watercolors and moved on to oil paints. But prior to getting into all of the specifics of the type of paint and the motivation behind the paintings and whatnot, he talked a little bit about true happiness. And he would say, to quote Winston Churchill, to be really happy and really safe, one ought to have at least 2 or 3 hobbies, and they all must be real. He felt that a lot of times people would just choose to do things. And in the book, again, he would say, it is no use to do what you like. You must like what you do. And he talked about a disconnect between, like, people in business. They decide they want a pastime, they want a hobby, and so they just pick something that everybody else is doing. And he said that that's stupid. Don't do that. Some people have a natural disposition toward certain things, so don't force yourself into this. But he feels like people could very easily transition their life and everything to have art as a part of it, the creation of art, not just the appreciation of art.
So he talks about just having hobbies in general to kind of light people up and make them happy.
Correct.
But for him, primarily, it was art.
Correct.
That's so cool because, like, right now, it's kind of that time of the year. Everybody else kind of does goal setting or whatever before January 1st.
Right.
I'm very different in that I, like, wait till the first of the year, reflect on the past year, what went well, what didn't go well. But I always, when I'm setting my intentions or the things that I want to do or how I want to feel for the next year, it's always like, okay, what am I going to do for play, which is hobbies, right? And
right.
I totally agree with him. We were just talking about this today. Like, if people don't have that play in their life, I think that, and then people obviously that are very supportive of them, like, that's two huge pieces. Having a hobby and something you enjoy instead of just going through every day with work and kids, and, like, it just seems so dark, like, not dark, but just, I don't know. I totally agree with him.
Yeah, and he talks quite a bit about the important things that he discovers through the process. He discovers that building a library is important. Having access to books is important. He feels that having around 5,000 copies of texts at his disposal that is organized in a way that's easily accessible to the owner of the books is a valuable thing to have. He also is talking about his time in charge of the Navy. He was an admiral in the, he was probably admirable, but he was an admiral to some degree in the British Navy. And he made some decisions, and boats got blown up, people got killed. It was a horrible thing, and he was fired. And basically, you could look back in the history books, he got fired and went to a huge depression, was very much, his wife was very concerned that he was going to do something drastic.
So was it his choice to turn to art, or was that like something his wife inspired him to do?
He saw somebody painting in the garden, went out there and was like, hey, and at first it was watercolor paints. Hey, what's with this watercolor paints? And he kind of started playing a little bit with like a children's watercolor paint set. And he thought, well, maybe there's more to that. And then he ended up upgrading to an oil paint set. And he kept a little paint box in his pocket all of the time. And he would set up an easel and he would smoke his cigar and paint landscapes. And that's predominantly what he had done, landscapes and things like that. And I think that it's really interesting that these powerful world leaders that have so much power go to something like painting for relaxation and reflection.
Therapy.
Winston Churchill, he was on the verge of, being done. But, painting kind of gave him another outlet. It gave him a therapy. It gave him another thing. Not this book, but there is another text that I own on George W. Bush. George W. Bush, after his presidency, decided he was going to be a painter. And a lot of people gave him crap. They're like, oh yeah, George Bush is going to become a painter. To his credit, he started painting portraits. He painted portraits of veterans. He painted portraits of his family members. He did self-portraits. He did all kinds of things. In the beginning, they're pretty rough. But by the time he gets, a couple dozen paintings done, he's starting to get better and better each time. And there's a whole book of his paintings out there. Dwight D. Eisenhower, another president of the United States, he was a very accomplished painter. Who knows? Maybe other presidents are closet painters or something. We don't know about them yet, but I think that that's a really great thing, and I'm sure there are other examples throughout history of world leaders that were accomplished with some art form or another. But again, Winston Churchill, he's one of those icons of history that I really appreciate. I like his quotes. I like his mannerisms. I like, he's kind of a feisty old, kind of.
Did you just find this book, like, at Half Price Bookstore, or do you recommended it, or what?
I had read, there was another book that I had bought of Winston Churchill's paintings. And so I bought this other book, and it talked about how he had this award-winning book that was called Painting as a Pastime. So I thought, wow, he wrote like his own personal account, not written by some biographer or something. This came from him, from his brain. And I thought, I want to read that. That's the book that I want to read. And so I started searching and searching and searching. I ended up finding it on eBay and purchased a copy on eBay. So
interesting.
But again, it's a great read. It's a quick read. It's easy read, and it's very reflective of what I think a real artist should be. It's not about glory. It's not about how do I become an influencer or something. Like
you're doing it as a passion.
Very much of our time, but it's more of a here's a hobby that's not just a good hobby, but it's rewarding. There's personal benefits to me. There's going to be personal benefits to you. There's work, and no matter where you go in the world, there's going to be an opportunity for you to go out and enjoy this.
Why do you think with like George W. Bush, like people look down on him, or like
I think
like
that,
becoming an artist?
I think that because it was George W. Bush, I think that like people
say that, but that doesn't mean anything to me.
Like, I think people thought of him kind of as kind of a not very bright. I think people looked down on his intelligence. They kind of saw him as the party boy that ended up riding his dad's coattail to becoming a president. Even though, boy, that's a hard thing just to kind of
depression.
Hey, let me ride your coattails and become the most powerful person in the world. Not very realistic, but I think that's a lot the perception of people. I think people think of the Saturday Night Live Will Ferrell sketch of George W. Bush as opposed to George W. Bush and the real guy. But politics aside, I think that it's admirable that he would pursue something like that.
I think the coolest thing out of that conversation that I pull from that, being the love the therapy part of it, is like how this guy came out of this deep, dark depression that he had, and something and I don't want to say simple, but like, we're looking for these drugs and these, all these therapies and weed and whatever to bring us out of these deep depressions. And it's like, no, just find a hobby, find a passion, find a purpose, find something and look what that did for him and what it could do for many people. And I do think art does that for a lot of people. And
not to say that some drastic cases need more drastic measures, but I think that here's a guy who's been fired from his job. He's lost everything that he thought that he had going for him. What are you going to do now? All right, well, maybe, and he just starts painting. And then he gets out of the funk. He becomes the Prime Minister of England during one of the most challenging times of being a Prime Minister of England. He was the Prime Minister during World War II. What
age was he? I know I read he started painting at 40.
He did.
So when was he a Prime Minister?
After 40. I don't know. He was probably in his 50s. I don't know.
later after the.
Yeah.
He started the.
Quite a ways after that. But he does mention that in the book about, 40 isn't really young to start a hobby, but that's when he started. And if he can do it at 40, then everybody should be able to do it at 40. So.
I think that's kind of a turning point oftentimes when you feel like, okay, I've spent a majority of my life working and maybe not on the most important things. And so finding time for yourself and passions around the age of 40, that's not anything odd.
Midlife crisis time.
On to ARTalk. One Sunday in 1886, George Seurat captured a scene of people relaxing beside the Seine River. His painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte, inspired a musical by Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine, Sunday in the Park with George. The picture comes to life on stage. If you wrote a play based on a work of art, which work would it be, and what would the play be about?
What artwork would I choose and what would the play be about? This is one of those questions, like we've talked about in the past.
Yes.
Where me making a choice paints me in the corner.
No, just you're choosing one because that's what comes to the top of your mind. You're not. I
feel like there's pressure. I feel like there's pressure to answer the right thing.
Think of a piece of art that would just inspire you to write a play about it. Like the scenery, okay, so what's the first one that jumps into your head? I have to do this every time.
I can't.
Is this what the Art Vault is going to be?
This isn't the Art Vault. This is ARTalk.
ARTalk? Is this what the ARTalk is going to be?
This is ARTalk.
Yes, and it asks questions. It asks for you to come up with something off the top of your head.
Well, then what would you pick?
I don't know any art. I'm only the podcast.
I'm glad you're in charge of the podcast about it, since you're really into it.
I would do something. I don't know. Like, to me, if there was an art on, or a piece of art on the Day of the Dead. I don't know why that.
Piece of art. There's a lot.
Okay, so I would pick a piece of art about the Day of the Dead, and then I would create a play around that. Because, like, that movie, Coco. It's already been made. Yes. Well,
Disney's going to sue your ass off.
Not from a piece of art, but I love that movie, and I love the idea, not the idea, but the meaning
dead people. Love dead people.
I'm fascinated by the world of people passing over and... Did you see how that works? Did you see how I did that?
But you didn't pick a piece of artwork. You didn't pick a piece of artwork. You just said...
I didn't pick the piece of art, but
you didn't,
a work of art about...
But there is no... What work of art is about the Day of the Dead? I can't even think of one.
I have no idea. That's why I said I would not be good at this. But I am not an artist, clearly.
It's not really something that I know a lot about, and he's not really completely of my time. But I think that the storytelling of Jacob Lawrence would really be an interesting, because he uses these really bright primary colors, some green, but a lot of primary colors. He's an artist of just after the Harlem Renaissance. He's kind of lumped in with the Harlem Renaissance painters. I think that his artwork could tell a really good story of, what life was like during that time. Again, I'm not of the 20s and 30s. Certainly not.
Do your research.
But I'm certainly not from Harlem, New York. But it would be interesting to have a play or a musical based upon like the settings and the artworks of Jacob Lawrence, the scenes that he could set, the painting of the family walking down the street and things like that, put together to tell some sort of a narrative. I don't know what it would be, but I think Jacob Lawrence, the paintings of Jacob Lawrence to influence a story of a family in Harlem during the Depression, black migration and all of the things that were going on, and I don't know. I think that could be a story.
A play.
A story, a play, a musical, I don't know.
It says a play.
Well, I don't care what the card says. I'm telling you, it could be a great story, it could be a great play, it could be adapted to lots of things. I don't care what the card says.
I'm pretty sure I'm the one that's running the show here. And the card says the
My
play.
My bad. Bad. Bad.
Well, I hate to do this to you, but you are again in our next news section.
New segment.
And pay attention to the
Wonderful
artwork
graphic.
the graphic that
AI
introduces
generated.
this. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, you obviously put your spin on it and
I added some
stuff,
things,
which made it drastically better, but it is
Drastically
pretty cool.
better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is that funny?
It just is.
Okay. Well, anyway, so the graphic for the new segment we're launching called The Art of Interpretation. Tell them a little bit about this new segment that we came up with.
So, the Art of Interpretation is a little segment where I take a piece of artwork and you interpret what you think that it means, and I give a more, I don't know.
Proper description?
I don't know if the proper is right, but I give my interpretation.
You're educated.
My educated interpretation of the painting.
All right, so the painting that we are going to talk about today is called the Arnolfini Portrait, right?
The Arnolfini Portrait by Jan van Eyck.
Yes.
He's kind of like on the edge of the gothic.
And Jan is a guy?
He is.
Oh.
And
I did not know that.
Very, very few females would have been in the profession of painter, sculptor at this time.
Okay.
Very, very few. And he and his brother made many great works, both very accomplished artists and draftsmen. And
so I have this portrait up, so I'm just looking at it. And so basically, I'm going to give my interpretation of what I think this piece of art is about, which is really hard to do because I want to be right. And I know I will not. I mean, I have a good idea that I'm probably not going to be right about this. But I do love the colors in this painting.
Red and green?
Just the green. I love the green in there. I like the reds. Yeah. But to me, okay, my initial thought when I looked at this portrait was it was like a family portrait if I just glanced at it for just a second. But then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to analyze it. There's shoes everywhere. Not everywhere, but there's like stuff everywhere. There's shoes, 2 pieces of shoes in the background, another pair of shoes in the foreground. Like, and then the guy's like, has his hand up like this, which to me means that he, after I thought about it, as I'm thinking about it, it looks like it's almost like a doctor or a priest or something, like blessing, like she's getting ready to have this baby and he's blessing the baby and she has her shoes off so she's comfortable. And I don't know, the guy's wearing black, so that kind of throws me off, but she's obviously not, I mean, she seems happy about it, but she's like opening up her hand like she's receiving something, which to me would be a blessing if you're looking at his. So my initial interpretation would have been like a family portrait, but when I look at it, it makes me think otherwise. And their faces are so creepy, I think. But I love the detail of the lighting in the background and the mirror and the writing on the wall and just the details if you look at it. I don't know. I like the piece of art, but I don't like their faces. So am I right, or am I?
You're no.
No.
No, I mean, there are things that you're there are some interesting things that you're drawing attention to, but you're not really explaining what any of those things mean. You talk about the chandelier.
Yes.
What's the significance of the chandelier? Why is the chandelier there?
Well, to me, that background shows like wealth. I don't know. Everything about that shows that this is like a wealthy family or a wealthy home. But I don't know. What else would the chandelier signify?
I'm asking you. I'm asking the questions here, Pod Boss.
Okay.
You talked about the writing on the wall and the...
Well, that was one of my questions. Like, is that a thing back then? Like, because there's actually writing on the wall. So is that just a part of the painting, or is that actually a thing that people did in that time frame? I've never seen that before.
I mean, that's definitely a thing.
In this portrait, or this painting,
yes,
it is.
That is a part of that painting.
But I'm saying for that time frame, was that a normal thing where people would just write on the walls?
No. No.
And obviously I can't read what it says, but...
Why?
I mean, obviously there's some significance
about that
writing.
Why is it obvious that you can't read what that says?
Well, because I would tell you what it said and the significance of it if I could read it.
Okay.
But there's obviously...
Is there nothing else there that gives you an indication of what this is about?
No.
There are no other objects or subjects that indicate what this is about, maybe?
Okay, I mean, I'm not an observant person, but no, it's a very general portrait of a man and a woman that do not look like they are related.
Not related. They are not related.
They don't look like they're related to me.
They are not related.
Looking at his face, he is like very serious and stoic and almost like, that's why I keep telling you, I feel like he's blessing this baby and she's taking her shoes off and she's ready to have the baby. In the bed, which is right here in the portrait. Again, another reason, why would you take a family portrait by your bed?
Okay. Is this the time where I tell you what's actually happening here?
I don't know if I want to know, but yes, the real, what's really going on in this painting.
The art historical interpretation that...
Did you pick this because you know it deeply and the relevance of it?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I picked this piece to start with because I thought it would be easy to interpret.
But you're saying I'm wrong. So clearly it's not.
You're not completely off on some things. The things that you're looking at are oftentimes things that are overlooked by observers. So let's start at the beginning. The main subject. You have the man, the woman. They are in the process of getting married. It's more of a engagement portrait than a wedding portrait, but that's essentially what's happening here. How do we know they're getting engaged? Well, like you said, he's got his hand up. He's giving an oath. She has her hand out. She's receiving the oath. She is not pregnant.
Oh, she isn't pregnant. Now that you say that, I can totally... She's got her dress lifted up to make it look like she's pregnant.
Yeah, and the reason that we know that she's not pregnant is if you look at the bedpost, there is the patron saint, kind of a fertility figure that's carved into the bedpost, and that tells us that she wants to be pregnant. She wants to have a child. The other thing is, you'll notice that her dress is not really a dress. It's a robe. And that is a robe that would signify that she's engaged. She would wear a white veil and the green robe, and the green robe, and the green robe is kind of like a symbol of like an engagement ring. And the dress that she actually has on is a blue dress. You see the blue sleeves?
Yep.
And you see there's blue at the bottom?
Yep.
It's not a dress, it's a robe.
Do you have to agree she looks like she's pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. I think you
picked this
to trick me.
It's very much a common misconception. It also tells what their roles are in the relationship. His role is to go out into the world and make money. That's why his back is to the window so that he can leave. Her job is to take care of the home. To take care of the home and, other duties of the time. This is pre-women's liberation. I don't want any messages on whatever. Like this, I didn't make this painting. Right? I'm just the messenger of the interpretation. I'm the art interpreter of sorts. Anyway, so that's where her role is in their relationship. So at the bottom of the picture, you also see a dog. The dog stands between them as a symbol going all the way back to the Renaissance. A dog signifies loyalty. He is loyal to her, she is loyal to him, they're equally loyal to one another. The shoes on the floor signify that this is a sacred event. You take your shoes off at a sacred event, her shoes are in the back, his shoes are in the front. If you look right behind him, you'll also see some fruit. You look on the windowsill, you'll see some more fruit. This is a symbol of their wealth. Their wealth comes from outside the home, which is why it's on the exterior wall. Moving on up to the chandelier. The chandelier is usually a chandelier will have all kinds of candles in it, right?
Yes.
But there are not all kinds of candles in it. There's only one candle in it. And this is to signify that they are monotheistic. There are lots of gods and lots of beliefs, but they believe in one God, the one God. And that one God is the candle that's signified by the candle. That one candle is lit, which is what that means.
Okay, so pause for a moment. Your interpretation is reading what he described this as?
That's
like all of these pieces, or someone else?
That's what those symbols mean.
Because he's told you that? Not you, but I mean because through a book or through this writing or whatever, he...
Yes. No, it's not just him. It was lots and lots of artists used the same symbols. Exactly. And so and some of these symbols are used to this day. So the very, very back, you've got the mirror. The mirror, around the outside edge of the mirror, it's called the Stations of Christ. Still to this day in churches, they have the stations signified through different things that are, and all of those are there. That tells that their belief system is Christian. It also has the rosary beads. To this day, people use rosary beads. Those are symbols that are still used. You mentioned the writing. The writing up above actually says Jan van Eyck was here 1434. So it tells, it's him signing his name to the work as graffiti. It was artwork was oftentimes signed as a card or a something that was written or carved or etched into something so that it blended in well. It wasn't just a signature in the corner. That's more of a contemporary idea of signing the corner of the painting, basically destroying the idea of this is a continuous space. This is a the painting. It draws one's attention to the painting surface as opposed to making it seem as though everything in the painting goes in. It's destroying the illusion of perspective. And so artists like Jan van Eyck would either not put their name on it, or they would make it look like their name was carved in something or written on a card or stamped in something, or in this case, written on the wall.
And, a lot of interesting
and that is the interpretation that I will provide of...
I don't know that I want to do this anymore. It's going to make me look really uneducated.
Well, but I think...
mean, there is nothing of that. When you say things, obviously, like the white veil and like the robe and taking the shoes off because it's a sacred, that makes sense to me. But
I think that a lot of people would have a very similar interpretation that you have. I think that a lot of people would maybe spot, well, she's wearing a green dress and it looks like she's pregnant and it looks like this or it looks like that. I mean, there are other little things that are going on in there. Like, for example, we very much see a very unique hairstyle by her. Her forehead is very, very high because back then the most educated and wise people in their world was the old men, the wise old men. So women of that time wanted to look intelligent. They wanted to be seen as wise, so they would shave their hairline higher on their head to give the illusion of being wise. That was very common. This exaggeratedly high hairline was very much in like a common thing at that time.
I would not have been able to live during that time. Women were very subservient to. Is that the right word?
Yeah, that's a word, I think.
Nice.
But I think that, yeah.
And did so much to please the men, I think.
Well, sweetheart, the thing is, you please me every day.
It's a give and take, honey. It's a give and take.
Well, it is.
And
but I think that
this is not a story of that, based on what you described.
Well,
what this artwork is describing.
Well, we don't know their relationship.
I'm talking about the shaving the head back, because they wanted to be more.
But that was style of that time. Just like people like in the future would be like, oh my gosh, women shave their legs. Oh my gosh, women shave their armpits. Oh my gosh, women, did this or did that, or men didn't shave their legs, or men.
So when was this? Now I'm going to look. 1434.
I believe I already said that.
Well, I was thinking about, I had my thoughts on something else. 1434.
1434. Jan Van Eyck was here.
That is all very interesting. And the fact that I thought Jan was a female.
No. Well, and again, I think that again is a very common misconception. And I know several men named Jan. And I also, like my grandfather's name was Pearl. And so a lot of times people, oh my gosh, Pearl, that's a girl's name, but it's...
Well, there's a lot of
names that,
Well, that's a very interesting, it's kind of fun. I hope people thought that was interesting. I think it was interesting, but it also just was very enlightening for me, where there's probably a lot of people out there.
Yeah. And this isn't a segment we'll probably do all of the time, but it's kind of fun to...
Well, you're breaking down the piece of art and talking about the specifics of it, and
to see what your thoughts are versus what the art historical.
Educated.
But that's fun. But it's kind of a fun little thing. And who cares if you don't know that, or you don't notice the shoes, or you don't recognize that fruit on a windowsill means.
Well, my interpretation is more like I'm thinking of today's world and how is seen more than like I should have went back and thought of that time, that time period, and how that a lot of times was very different symbolism.
Well, and how virtually impossible is that if you don't know what that symbol is? Like you might be able to pick out like dogs mean loyalty. Like,
right.
That's been a symbol for. Well, since the Renaissance.
Well, and the oranges.
But who's going to be able to, really fully understand the significance of the chandelier if you don't understand the significance
that's the most interesting
chandelier.
Part to me, was that chandelier.
Yeah.
And like the significance of that.
So.
Cool.
Anyway.
That was fun. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I found it interesting and entertaining. Thanks for watching today. We hope you'll join us next time. We are going to be releasing podcasts every week now.
Every week, and so hopefully you'll be able to find a little something here or there that you appreciate. And if you have suggestions or ideas or whatever on the podcast as it's rolled out, obviously we'll, comments and concerns and questions are certainly welcome.
Yes, and please hit like or subscribe, share it with someone that you think would appreciate the entertainment, the information that we provide. We certainly appreciate that, and we hope you continue watching.
Have a good night, day, whatever you're watching.